I was put in a situation for many years where I had to find a way to heal massive trauma by myself. So, massive trauma, I'm talking about very early childhood trauma, for instance. And I'm not blaming anyone for anything. Things happen. And it doesn't really matter what happened. What happened was the core thing is that my body was deeply traumatized, even if I didn't know how or the details of it. I could feel it. I could feel that something was wrong. And I didn't have any money or resources or help. So I found myself trying to heal that trauma uh, by myself, even as a kid. And again, not blaming the parents, not blaming anyone. It's just that's what the situation was, and that was the culture I was in. And in our culture, there's a discourse about trauma that really put me into a lot of trouble. It really hurt me greatly, and it made the recovery incredibly harder and more painful than it needed to be. And the main thing I'm going to say here is what that error is, why it's a cultural problem, and what the solution is for you individually. Because I presume that you might be, suffering from trauma, or maybe you know someone. So here's my take on it. When we have trauma, we feel that something is wrong and we want to fix it. And the problem we have, first of all, is that we don't know what trauma is. So trauma is a physiological response. It comes from your body. It is not emotional. It is not psychological. It has emotional effects. It has psychological effects. But fundamentally, it is your body reacting to a perceived threat. Your body was in a terrible situation, whatever that was. It was afraid for its life, essentially, and its reflex kicked in, so fight or flight, but it couldn't do either. So if you were a baby, when whatever, like a doctor dropped you or whatever, something terrible happened even something like that, or even just a loud noise could generate that. It doesn't matter. You were a baby and you were in a severe stress or a war zone or whatever, and the baby's nervous system can't handle it at all, because before 2 years old, we can't even self-regulate. Like, we need the mother or another human being to soothe, to train our nervous system to soothe itself. Because for the first 2 years of our lives, we can't do that. So if you had, for instance, a severe event that happened, traumatic event, well, your body perceived the threat and its survival fight-flight mechanism kicked in, but obviously a baby can fight against a polar bear, whatever the threat was. So then the body defaults into the third option, the other option. So your body switches gear. This is the polyvagal theory. Okay? So the vagus nerve essentially sends the signal to switch gear and put you in the mode where if the bear eats you or the lion eats you, you won't suffer so much because you're essentially like zoned out on endorphins or whatever. And if the bear goes away, then you can normally, as a grown animal, you can wake up and run away. You shake it off and you run away. But if you're a baby, none of that happens. You stay into freeze mode. And you can spend many, many years in freeze, and that has severe health effects in many cases, and has a lot of, yes, psychological consequences and emotional consequences. But fundamentally, all that is a consequence of your body physically maintaining its freeze mode. Remaining in bear is about to eat me mode. Okay, and but none of that was known like 30 years ago. Basically, it's all fairly recent science. The body keeps the score, and Peter Levine or Irene Lyon talks a lot about that. And what used to be publicly shown, like in movies, for instance, very like in Marnie, the Hitchcock, I think, movie, or in The Entity, there's an evil ghost that torments a girl, and you see psychiatrists talking, and like watch any movie where trauma is mentioned, even recent movies, and it's never mentioned, it's never described as a physiological response. It's basically the theory that is usually presented, which I believed as a kid because that was what was being taught to me by the movies and television, is that, okay, there was a traumatic event and it was buried, psychologically it was buried. And I saw somebody like on Reddit like 2 days ago say the same thing. Like on the Jungian sub, somebody was saying, "Oh, is my trauma, is this response shadow related?" The shadow, which is part of the Jungian way of seeing the psyche because it's buried. And yeah, from a certain point of view, there's an element of that. But somebody was saying, "No, it's the shadow. It's not psychological, it's physical." So it's not a question of your memory blocking whatever happened, though that does happen, but that's like an after effect. The problem isn't that you've suppressed the memory. The problem is that you're in freeze mode and your body is alternating between the bear is about to eat me, so I'm going to let it eat me, which is freeze mode, or the bear is about to eat me, but I might be able to run away, which is, fight, flight, or fight the bear. So rage, anxiety, or freeze, which is what living with PTSD is, essentially. But when you watch those movies I mentioned, or really like any TV show or those comments on Reddit, and they mean well, but you watch that and you're like, oh, what I really need to do is bring back that memory from the surface. Well, why was the memory buried? Because you can't handle it. You can't handle the truth. Well, in this case, it's true. That's why it's buried. You couldn't handle it. And this so-called healing modality, which is based on bringing that back up, well, they ignore that it's a biological response, a physiological nervous system response. So they say, bring back the memory, and I tried that. You try to bring back the thought or the feeling, and many times you don't even remember if it's early age trauma, like before 2 years old, or even in your mother's womb, you can have trauma. Some of it is generational trauma. That's a whole other topic. But very often you can't even bring back the memory, so that part is not even possible. But even if you do, if you bring back that feeling of terror, what happened? What happened to me? I couldn't handle it. And we think we're so powerful and so smart until that happens, because we have no clue. We have no clue. We have no frame of reference until we've lived it for how powerful these things are. You cannot imagine how intense that is, of these things coming back up if you haven't developed the capacity for it. So because I tried for many years to dig back the sensation, I can feel the body, feel the sensation. For years I did that, and trying to remember and trying to put myself in, difficult situations, because we see the idea that, like in Vertigo, the guy is afraid of heights, but at the end, he will see heights, and in a tower, he'll go in the tower and will force himself to confront his fear or something like that, Well, I think he dies. at the end of Vertigo. It doesn't end well, Vertigo. But either way, the idea that we have to confront our fear. I'm afraid of heights, so I'll go bungee jumping. Well, if you're traumatized and your fear of heights comes from that and you're going bungee jumping, it's a terrible idea. It's an awful idea. You're not ready for that. You're not facing your fear. You're frying your nervous system. That's insane. But people give that advice. So, and what happened, at least in my case, was that eventually I developed like severe, insufferable back pain, amongst other symptoms, But like it was hell on earth. If you had back pain, you know how bad it is. And apparently very often back pain is emotional, dare I say trauma related. It's apparently very, very frequent. Even if it appears to be caused by, I had picked up some very heavy luggage, so that was the outward event that provoked it, but that's a whole other topic. But essentially, I developed it seemed like it was the baggage, but fundamentally, my body was already in a state where I had, like in the Mines of Moria. in Tolkien, in the Lord of the Rings, I had dug too deep, and I was not ready for what came up. And what came up was the Balrog, and the Balrog was the trauma. And at that point, eventually, I had read Peter Levine's book, at least half of it, but I had read the core of the Peter Levine Waking the Tiger book, because I had recognized what he was describing, essentially. I had recognized the symptoms I was having. And I could see that my life was going wrong in so many ways, and I could tell there was a link there. And so eventually through YouTube I watched the Irene Lyon videos, which I mentioned a lot, and eventually, because I was in horrible physical pain, I went to see a somatic experiencing therapist, and that's a whole other topic. But I went to see her for about a year or two. And the core lesson, what was the main mistake I made? I was trying to do it all by myself, and I was trying to do it quickly. And I was trying to bring back the memory to the surface, and all these things are not the way to go. All these things added years and years of hell and torment to my life. And if you had trauma, you certainly don't need more hell and torment. You probably want less. So the trick, if you can, so in my case, I needed to see somebody because I had early childhood, early developmental trauma, probably pre-birth, like in the first 9 months in your mother's womb. And again, it's not a question of, there's so much trauma and so many things can cause it. So it's not, there's no blame towards anyone, really. It's just, this is what happened. Your body needs, this is what happened, this is how your body reacted, and now you need to let your body get back to its self-healing mode, which it has. Because you can, even at 60, 70 years old, you can completely, there is a part of you that would always need healing, but there is this thing called the neuroplasticity, essentially, whereas your body is designed to heal no matter what age you are. And thankfully, even for very, very severe and very, very early trauma, that's essentially always active, is a short version. There's very extreme situations where you can't, there are nuances, but essentially even in those cases, it's a special case, like, kids brought up in cages and with no human contact for 20 years. That level of trauma, Like I saw Irene Lyon mention that these people will never be completely okay. But like in the case of even severe early trauma, like as I was describing, you will always have to deal with elements of it, but it's in layers. At first it's insufferable, but eventually you develop your capacity, your nervous system capacity, and you learn to soothe yourself, and your body does healing like in waves and layers. Okay, and eventually, it does it does become significantly. You do get out of, oh my God, I'm so traumatized mode. There is an after that, no matter how traumatized you are, because your body does. Not only does it want to heal, but it's designed to heal. Your body is a healing machine in many ways. So, so in certain cases, certainly you definitely need help. And in my case, like I offer a coaching service, but that part of it, there's a part of it that I cannot do. I don't do it because I don't have the training to have some experience, but not the training to help completely. Like there's a part of it that you need a somatic experiencing healer or somebody like that. There are other modalities that are kind of like that. Well, any non-intrusive, like soft, patient, body-based approach will get you those results. And you certainly need a specialist if your nervous system was never regulated, which was essentially my case, and all the indications was in my case that was what happened. If you have a early developmental trauma, but I have found recently I did realize that I had gone out of that stage. I'd say I still get a lot of activation. Dozens of times a day, really, but it's not like before. And I have the techniques to, like the main technique, which is orienting. I did another video where I go more into detail on that basic technique. But my nervous system has built enough capacity to heal itself. Okay. But what was the way that worked? What was the approach that worked? Was building nervous system capacity, which is the Irene Lyon sentence, which is teaching my body to feel safe. And that is what you need to do. Okay. Once you do that, okay. And again, other videos, mine, Irene Lyon's, other people. Okay, go in more detail into what that means. But your job, if you're recovering from trauma, your job is to teach your body that it is okay to feel safe. And once it feels safe, those memories you've been trying to dig up, or those feelings you've been trying to dig up, will come up naturally and in a safe way. And believe you me, even if it's safe, you are likely to find them pretty intense at times, a lot, sometimes. But your body will not give you, if you do it that way, your body will not give you more than you can handle. Because, yeah, you're just, another topic. But so the short version is the mistake is trying to force the healing through an act of will and wanting it to be quick because we want so bad for it to be gone away. And that's a healthy reflex. This is our body telling us you need to heal something. So the impetus is healthy. I need to heal this quickly. So it comes from the healing mechanism, but our mind understands it as, therefore I need to find a way to do it quickly, you see. I need to find a method or a hack or a technique. Don't do that. The technique is be slow. The hack is take your time. So build capacity. Feel safe, you know. Yeah. So if you need, my main coaching service is individuation. You know, become yourself, finding your way through the midlife crisis. These things. I can definitely help. So drop me a line if you're curious. But I have some other videos about trauma. I encourage you to look at them if you're thinking you might have trauma. And essentially, and also really do check out Irene Lyon's content. It's a godsend. More than a gold mine. It truly is a godsend, that content. And even if you can't afford a therapist, she does have some free resources which are life-changing. So and will teach you how to how to do it. Yeah. So be good to yourselves and take care and be patient and. It does get better.